Okay, count me down. I'm ready. Let's. Hello, and welcome to What You Gotta Say. As usual, I'm Vincent Squire. I think I'll be Vincent Squire for the rest of my life. But what we're running into in today's society now, the CDC, the World Health Organization, and our accounting of every American that has been vaccinated. We have now reached over 50% of American adults fully vaccinated, which leaves us to roughly 74% total, with including the people who just have the one shot. Now that we are reaching herd immunity and we are really combating and defeating this virus, we're now going into another phase in American history. Remember, we had the shock and awe of the pandemic and when it was starting. Now we're going into the shock and awe of reentry. Now, I've got an expert on this subject, and you're really going to love her. It's Tia Sanders, but I'm going to tease you. We're going to talk to her right after this break. So we're going to see you in 2 minutes, 2 seconds. Now, getting back to normal in our society, I don't know about you, but I don't want to get back to the normalities of our pre-pandemic society. I don't want to get back to the rat race, the running around. I don't want to get back to the passive aggressions of race in our society. I don't want to get back to the hustle and strain. And it seems like a lot of Americans feel the same way. We're now at the threshold of building back better, or not getting back to norm, but building a new norm. We're now at the threshold of changing the things in our society, in ourselves, that we don't like and don't need. With me is Tia Sanders, owner of the Hope. Okay, why don't I just let her do it? Tia Sanders, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you are the owner of, give us the name of the company.
Hope Chest Consultations is a private practice that provides individual, family, and marital counseling, and also counseling and training for youth and families, parenting skills, staff development, and working with mental health and personal development.
Wow. Now, our viewers did see your commercial in your book. I did read some of the excerpts. That is a well-written book.
Well, thank you.
What inspired you to make something so comprehensive?
It started from personal experience and going through a very challenging time in my life where I felt like I had lost my voice, and it was actually therapeutic for me to begin to write. And as I began to process, also being a licensed clinical social worker and a therapist, realizing that we're all going through at some point or stage in our life, we go through some challenging situation that really gets to the core of who we are. And in order not to break, you have to be able to find the message in your challenges and the test in your testimony. And so it was birthed out of that experience from the desert to your destiny.
I am reading it. I get the feeling that you have a very spiritual foundation.
Yes, it is a faith-based book. I am a Christian, and so it is birthed out of my Christian experience. But to apply, how do you take those spiritual principles of your life and really apply it to day-to-day life and make it really applicable for you to be able to thrive and succeed. So I wanted to make it relatable and understandable of how you can use your faith as a part of your resilience.
Oh, well, let's give a shout out to your church and your pastor, please.
Well, currently I'm in transition. So I am a member of, I'm not a member of any specific church right now. So we're just in the process of transition, and I like to visit and just fellowship with the body of Christ.
Oh, finding a church home. I'm going to send you a link to our Zoom. My pastor would love to meet you.
Okay, do so. Always looking forward to the opportunity to fellowship with other believers.
Okay. So I'm a firm believer of one of the quotes by Nietzsche, that what does not kill us makes us stronger. The desert, a desert experience. And I'm finding out in the Bible, everyone has a wilderness experience. And we seem to be at that crossroads where we are going to overcome this and walk into a portion of our greatness, or let the wilderness defeat us and we Neanderthal in self-pity and mediocrity.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So what, without a great deal of detail, how did you overcome your wilderness experience?
It really was an opportunity for self-reflection and really to have to be transparent with myself. Being a mental health professional, sometimes I find that the helper is the hardest to get help. And so really having to be honest and being transparent with my emotions and really being able to develop that and articulate that and come to a place where I recognize that, strength is a blessing, but you don't always have to be strong. There is a blessing in being vulnerable and being honest and being transparent. And so taking that experience and relying on the word, relying on the faith that I was raised in, understood, and really leaning and depending on friends and family and spiritual supports. And so using those resources that you have around you, and not too many times when we're going through stuff, we like to withdraw. We like to, go inward instead of letting others know what's happening. And so I really had to, overcome that and really begin to share in my experiences and learn from them and grow from them and apply the lessons that I had been preaching and teaching and training on, to my own self in terms of coping skills, trying to find what works for me. Really congregation and communication and really confidence, finding ways to build up my skill sets in the particular areas that I was struggling with. And combining all of that, God really led me. The book really takes you through the journey from the wilderness to the promised land and what that looked like, because it looks so easy. When you're reading the Bible, you know how it is.
Oh, it just 4 years. Yeah, life sentence. We're all right.
Exactly. And when you're reading it, we already know the end of the story. Let my people go and Moses and all of that. But if you really put yourself in that place and position, what is it like to go through a desert experience for 40 years? And many of us in our own lives, personal, professional lives, we've been through some things and we're still going through some challenges. But how can we not let those challenges break us? And how can we use that to grow and then also use that to help others? So I think that was a way for me to heal, is by taking my experiences, being honest, being transparent. And it really helped me to be more empathetic to the struggles of other people. And it really helped me to be a better clinician and professional in my field, being able to not just have the head knowledge, but also the heart knowledge.
Speaking of head knowledge, where did you matriculate?
I have a master's from social work from the University of Pennsylvania.
UOP.
Yes.
All right. It's a beautiful thing. Okay. Now, wilderness experience is what a lot of people in the world are going through with this pandemic. I mean, we're faced with challenges. We've experienced food insecurities. We've experienced financial insecurities. We've experienced relationship insecurities. This pandemic has exposed us to all of our faults and frailties.
Definitely. And it's so, pertinent, that the pandemic, as you said, it really took us all, to a different place. And, I define in the book, one of the chapters is called Defining Moments. And that this was a defining moment for all of us individually, internationally, as a people, as a body, that, we had to face this and we had to wrestle with our own mortality. We had to wrestle with, family and friends and the isolation. And did feel like, and sometimes does feel like a desert experience going through this challenging times for the last, 18 months or so. That it definitely, there were a lot of dry places, things that dried up, isolation, feeling, lost. And what are we going to do in confusion? I've actually been to the real desert. I've been to the Sahara Desert, one of the deserts, and it was a beautiful, life-changing experience. But if you're out in the desert too long and you're not prepared, you can have, some serious side effects. And so the same thing happens, psychologically and emotionally, even through this pandemic. If we don't take care of ourselves mentally and emotionally and physically, we can have a lot of negative outcomes coming out of this pandemic worse than we went in.
Well, let's take care of a myth. Black people don't need therapy. All we need is Jesus and a babies.
That and some ginger ale.
Some ginger ale. Yeah. And if it's real strong, you take a bear aspirin.
The Bible says you'll see godly counsel. And so I believe that everything that science and the sciences are a way to point you to God. So I believe that you see God in all things. And so I believe that God gave us psychology. He gave us social work. He gave us these principles to illuminate these practices, to illuminate his principles. And so I use my practice, even though, and I tell anyone that even though I'm a Christian, it's not Christian counseling. But if you want to incorporate your faith into your healing process and your spiritual, your counseling process, then go ahead, because faith is a factor to resilience. And so they're not mutually exclusive. Just like God made doctors, and people have their opinions on doctors as well, but just like God equipped us with the knowledge, all of the knowledge belongs to God. He is omniscient. And so therefore, he just imparted to us that knowledge to be able to be fruitful and to prosper. It says, I wish that you will prosper, mind, body, and soul in all things. And so, our mind is our soul, our spirit, our emotions, our decisions, in our mind. And so we have to take care of that just as well as we focus on our body and our spiritual being. We have to take care of our mind, because as a man thinks in his heart, so is he.
Well, let's look at Christianity and science. And a lot of Christians don't agree with science. But I tell a lot of people this, and maybe you can help me, if I'm wrong, please give me some insight. Science only explains what God has already done.
Absolutely. That's what I believe. And that's what I believe, that the word, if you look at the word, it illuminates. They haven't been able to disprove that God exists, but the sciences point you to God existing and everything in it. So I say use the sciences and to illuminate the word to, God already exists. You don't need to prove it, but if somebody needs to, everything points you back to God. So
right.
I believe that the sciences do.
Okay, so there are a great deal of Americans who truly have not healed from the start of the pandemic. And this is now complicating with us coming to the end of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. What can we do?
I think the first thing is to be honest with yourself. Because many people, you can't get help if you don't recognize that you have a problem. And so you said many people have not healed, and you have to identify the area in you that has been injured, that has been broken, that has been depleted. So whether that's emotionally, whether that's physically, whether that's financially, that's psychologically, whether that's relationally. So you need to identify the areas and then focus on self-care. We are multifaceted human beings. And so there's many parts of ourselves. So if you look at your self-care, and self-care is not just, getting a facial or mani or pedi or going to the gym. Self-care is all the facets of yourself.
I'm going to write that part down for my wife.
That's part of it. But self-care is, looking at all the aspects of your life and seeing how can I be more in tune to that? What are the small steps that I can take to improve, my physical and your physical temple, but maybe your physical surroundings. Maybe your house, your room isn't as clean as it needs to be, or you got a little unorganized during the pandemic. Can you?
How can it be a mess? I mean, we had nothing but time to look at that mess. You think at some point you want to clean it up, but that's not altogether what really happens.
Because it was a struggle being in the pandemic. So emotionally, psychologically, you couldn't necessarily be as productive as you would like to have when you're dealing with stress, dealing with the stresses of jobs, dealing with the stressors of children being in the home and having to work from home, and stressors of loved ones dealing with COVID or sickness or death. So we were not in our typical state. So I would encourage people to recognize, and when I'm working with my clients in my private practice, they're really down on themselves because of all the stuff they didn't do. And I'm like, sometimes you just need to give yourself some grace and forgiveness, and the fact that you survived yet one more day. The fact that we are living testimonies that we made it through, hopefully healthier, or we're at least here through the pandemic when, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who lost their lives. So start with giving yourself some grace and then identifying where you want to begin. You don't have to take it all on all at once. You just identify one thing that you need to begin to work on and a small step. As some people mentioned the pandemic 30, they say that people have gained between 30 and 50 pounds during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, I ate a lot of COVID-19.
And so, you can't focus on all of that. Maybe you just focus on, I'm going to drink more water today and, getting back into a routine. I mean, we went into shock having to go into the lockdown and go into the pandemic. And so I never thought I would work from home. I thought I would lose my mind. I was so used to running and being out and about and running from here to there. But now I've gotten to a new normal of being home and working remotely and doing, Zooms and virtual. Now it's like, I got to go back out into the real world, and so being prepared, mentally preparing yourself to re-enter and taking, baby steps. It's not a plan ahead for what you're going to need to do, but just have confidence, even as we were able to just adjust to going into the pandemic. The brain is wonderful and it is resilient because it continues to grow if you allow it, and it continues to develop and it adjusts. And that's what being flexible, resilient is. And so we will readjust some shape, form, or fashion to our new normal.
Okay, so we're going to talk about readjusting to our new normal. I'm with Tia Sanders from the Hope Cast. And we're going to talk about finding your resilience in this pandemic. I'm Vincent Squire with Tia Sanders. We're going to be back after this break in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
To small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you going to find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. May be able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
Welcome back. I'm here with Tia Saunders, owner of the Hope Chest Consultation. Now, we were talking before about some of the stresses that people were dealing with in the pandemic and issues that they have not dealt with. Now, there are a lot of the physical issues that we basically had to deal with in terms of now. Our home has become our office, our school for our children, our recreation, our gym, our restaurants, and finding new things. Because believe me, if, as a friend of mine said, the only thing that his wife knew how to make was a chicken pot pie. And after the third week, that got real old. So we had to find ways to be creative and understanding. But so we've overcome that. But what I found out is that a lot of Americans haven't overcome a lot of psychological wounds in our pandemic. We had one of the biggest things attacking us is one, financial and fears of that. We then went to fears of food, not getting enough, as well as fear of toilet paper. And for all those people who hoarded all that toilet paper, let me know when you have a yard sale. We also ran into the fears of our country. We had a president who enforced a big lie and saying it was going away. This disease is going away. It's a democratic ploy. They just want to discredit me. To now over 500,000 Americans dying. Not only that, but we had to deal with the fear of our most sacred aspects of what makes us Americans, our elections, the peaceful transformation of power from one private citizen to the next, elected by the people for the people, was disrupted by lies, by scandal, and by violence. And the January 6th attack on the Capitol had a great deal of scars in America. And we haven't dealt with that. How do we get over that so that we can get to a great reentry, Ms. Sanders?
I don't know that we get over it because you have to process it. You have to be able to deal with it and acknowledge it. And I think that for specifically for people of color, that, it's just been exhausting. And I'm not saying our friends and family who are not people of color, but as a person of color, that's just been something that just exacerbates everything else you're already going through. That combined with the social justice issues, the police killings, it's been emotionally George Floyd death.
We watch Americans, in fact, the world watched the life get choked out of a man. And this was no stage or anything like that. This was a real death.
Yes. And it was exhausting, and it still is emotionally exhausting. And I think that part of it is to allow ourselves to feel what we feel, to be able to express it to yourselves or to a safe environment. But I also would encourage us to, I never watched the George Floyd death because I know that was something that I could not have in my psyche, and so constantly seeing our brothers and sisters to guard your gates. And so one thing I caution people, you don't have to watch it. You can be informed and knowledgeable, but you don't have to watch people dying day in and day out. You can take a choice. So some of the things you need to do, what works for you. And also be mindful, be informed, but we don't have to be inundated and 24/7 watching the news, listening to the stories over and over and over and over and over, and just filling yourself up. So you have to be mindful of what you put into your mind, what you put into your spirit. So be aware, be informed, find your way to address it, whether it's through advocacy, whether it's getting involved on your local level, whether it's getting involved in something that's going on in your school community where you feel like you have a voice. If you feel like you need to write or go to politicians or do something, find something that you can do so you feel like you have a voice, so you feel like, you're making a difference, but then also realize that you can still find the joy in the midst of terrible situations. There's nothing wrong with Black joy or any other kind of joy, but you gotta celebrate.
I'm still waiting for them to finish up the next season of Ozark.
You gotta find something. If that's your joy, And don't feel guilty about it, because in the midst of everything we're going through, if we focus on everything that is wrong, you just will stay in a wilderness mindset. You
You
have
need to live in that space.
Exactly. You have to find balance of being educated, informed, proactive, transparent, honest, and honest with those around you. You're gonna might have to confront some people when it comes to this whole thing. But here's the other thing: we spend a lot of time debating people. People are going to make up their own minds. There's enough education and information out there that people want it. So if somebody has a different political view from you or doesn't see it, stop arguing. Stop arguing on social media. Stop it.
Because you still think Trump won.
Exactly. And there's nothing you can convince them otherwise, just like no one can convince you otherwise that he didn't win. So therefore, you just got to trust, do what's best for you emotionally, mentally, physically. And then find your moment in the midst of everything that else is going on, all the negative, find opportunities to celebrate, to rejoice, things that bring you peace and bring you joy. You can fight, but you can also go home and you can rest. There's a time for war and there's a time for peace. There's a time for everything. Make time. And I think that's the thing that we sometimes spend so much time in one place or one thing or on one topic that
we continue to wander in circles in that desert.
Absolutely. For way too long.
Mm.
God always made a way out, and we've been dealing with this racial inequity and since before our time, the beginning of time. So it's innate in America, but we don't have to let it consume us.
We do have to we have to stand up to make the change.
Absolutely. So
that's where advocacy comes in.
Absolutely. Advocacy, voting, education, mentoring, role modeling, having honest conversations. If you have someone who wants to have an honest conversation, has a different opinion from you, then go ahead. Because sometimes, people don't understand another person's perspective. And that hit me one day, because I'm so, in my opinion, and I really was speaking to someone who was of a different, race, and they were just, I was like, how can you be so clueless? And then I realized that that's their perspective. They are not African American, that they did not have my experience. So I can't expect them to see and feel the way I feel. Now that doesn't give you an excuse. However, I had to realize that, somebody else has a totally different experience than I do. And so I can't negate their experience.
Oh, yes. It's wonderful explaining to a white parent. In fact, I had this conversation and we did a show about it because they blew up my social media. I mean, it was like somewhere close to 9,000 comments. And then, you have to explain to one, and I did it like this. I said, when you say goodbye to your children and you kiss them goodbye and they get in the car and they drive off, you have a fear that a cop will pull your son over and kill him. Not one of them said they have that fear. Yet that fear rests in the minds and wrestles in the minds of African-American parents. But that's not just in today's society. Like you said, that's been going on since the post-slavery.
Right.
So how do we, having that conversation, are we bridging the gap in terms of our advocacy, or are we giving them another level of understanding of critical race theory?
I think it depends on who you're talking to. some people not gonna get the understanding, and so in your get wisdom and get knowledge and get understanding. Someone has to want that. Someone has to want to see somebody else's perspective. Mm-hmm. And so you can tell by the amount of energy that you're giving out and how much you're receiving back. So be mindful of that. If having conversations with individuals and what you're receiving is taking you to a negative space and you're feeling not energized, but you're feeling angered and you're feeling like, Twitter fingers, and you just gotta, go, tell them off, retract, because it is unproductive.
Yeah. I'm impressed by people who want to give me a piece of their mind, and I'm trying to express to them, you don't have that much to spare. Okay, so
I think that ultimately we need to get back to, deeper principles, of humanity. And I think that if we're responding to individuals from the good part of our humanity, because there's some parts about our humanity that, it is not good, but there's human decency. Am I responding kindly? Am I speaking the truth in love? And so again, going back to foundations of faith, how am I treating this person? And so we wish that everyone would see us the same way, but they don't. But I can't carry all of that. So I have to do what I can. That's what's in my lane to do. The people that I encounter, the means and the resources and the connections that I have and I can make, I can educate myself, and I can try to educate others. But at the end of the day, I can't take all of this on my shoulders, and we have to share the burden.
Ms. Saunders, do African Americans tend to, in your counseling, do they have the mindset that they're taking the world on their shoulders?
I think that they're just exhausted. Many times we're just exhausted by the fight and that the things we have to counteract, the things we have to see. I'm tired of educating, tired of, being the ones that, I talked to somebody the other day. I don't want to have to be the bigger person. Let somebody else be the bigger person.
Why do I have to be the representation of Black people and fight all of their microaggressions?
Exactly. So, you just have to decide what's your fight and what's your fight today, and what are you responsible for, you and your family, at the end of the day, and realize that we can't overgeneralize all white people or non-white people or anybody, or all males, all females. We're all different. And so I think that's the main thing, not to generalize, and because we can start vilifying people because our white brothers and sisters have been in the struggle with us too. And we cannot negate that, from slavery, they were assisting. So we can't, just demonize everybody.
Not only from slavery, but I've been to a few Black Lives rallies, and I found majority white people there. So we cannot stereotype that every white person is going to be against us in this pandemic, right, or in life in general. But we're going to dive into a few more things. Now, I'm with Tia Saunders from the Hope Yes Consultation, and we'll be back in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
To small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you going to find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. May be able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
All right, we're back with Tia Sanders from the Hope Chest consultation. Very insightful and very spiritual conversation. So, Ms. Saunders, tell us about or how people can reach you.
You can find me on psychologytoday.com and you can look up my name, Tia Sanders. It'll show up. If you just Google me, Tia Sanders, I'll show up. I'm also on Facebook under Hope Chest Consultations. And you can find me on Instagram under Don't Die in the Desert.
Oh, great. So, what motivated you to start this company?
Honestly, it was a divine encounter. I always had. I got my license, a licensed clinical social worker, and I always said it would be something I would do. You know, it's better to have it and not need it. And so I said, well, I would use it on the side if I wanted to. And I had a divine encounter with someone where I wasn't even thinking about starting a private practice, but they knew someone who knew someone. And after a conversation, I was like, why not? And so as I've been doing it, I've had my private practice for 9 years now, and recognizing that people need to see faces that look like me. You need to see African Americans, therapists, and and although I serve all people, it's helpful to see diversity in the field. And so recognizing that there is a need for a voice, and the fact that I've always been an encourager. Before I realized that I was going to be a therapist, this is innate in who I am. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to walk alongside individuals in their journeys towards healing, and just helping them to come to understanding, because that ultimately that's just what a therapist does, a counselor does, a good counselor, I should say, and a therapist, I should, because there are some differences. I will say that we're all not created the same or operate the same, but it's really just giving you some tools and some knowledge to help you think alternatively, and just to examine your own thoughts, and to see, what are my goals, what do I want to do, what's hindering me from getting there, and what can I do to move forward. And so, since I believe that that's the call and the mission of my life, which is to encourage and equip others to lead healthy and productive lives, it just lined up with what I wanted to do. I have a background in a history of working in the social service professions in different capacities for the past 25 years. And so this is just another aspect of what I do. And to see people, go from their desert experience to getting that revelation and just being a part of that journey is just a privilege and an honor.
Well, it has been a privilege and an honor to have you on our show. We definitely have to have you back.
Thank you so much. It has been my honor, and I have enjoyed speaking with you. And definitely, let's continue to have a conversation about resilience and other topics on mental health and whatever else comes up for you.
Oh, if you've got a couple of minutes, can you dive in 3 to 4 minutes on resilience?
Okay. Resilience is the ability to be able to bounce back in a quick nutshell. So it means that though, you'll bend, but you won't break. And so we all need to be able to, we have resilience factors because that's how we're created. Everything is created to fight, to survive, and to live. But you have to have some factors and characteristics that grow that resilience. And that includes personal supports. It includes things that you're interested in, hobbies. It includes coping skills, competencies, building your skill sets. Some people are really good at public speaking or writing or mechanical stuff. Find the thing that you're good at and work that. Find some people that you can congregate with and who you can share your heart with. And even in the troubles, we can support each other. And those are, just some ways to help yourself to be more resilient and to build your coping skills, because we're all going through something. And so no matter what it looks like on social media or anywhere else, you get to smile in pictures, but you don't see all the ones that was deleted before it got posted. So just recognize that we're all going through something. We're all human, that this is a part of the life's journey. So if we normalize the fact that you're going to have some challenges, you're going to have some difficulties, and make mental health a priority, just like physical health is. And there's nothing wrong with focusing on mind, body, and soul, and that'll help you to be able to be more resilient.
Well, thank you again. Tia Saunders, owner of the Hope Chess Consultation. It's been a pleasure. Come back and see us again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spire.
Thank you. And we'll be back. Now, when we come back, we're going to dive into a subject for all of you Trump watchers. He is now scheduled for an indictment. Trump's business, Trump's children. Who's going to jail? We're going to take a dive into that in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
To small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you going to find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. May be able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
Hello, welcome everybody. I'm glad you're back. Now, I have a lot of people in which I engage on social media, life, phone calls, relatives, family, friends, and I have to say that we've got some Trump watchers. I mean, it's bad enough that we are all exhausted from his presidency, and it's bad enough that we are exhausted from him arousing a mob to actually have an attempted coup that they call the insurrection. Oh, and it's exhausting now to hear the Republicans say it didn't happen. However, one group that has not been exhausted in their pursuit of Donald Trump, state of New Jersey and the Attorney General, who announced yesterday, according to the Washington Post and the Huffington Post, that Donald Trump, they have found enough evidence to have a hearing on indicting Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, in his statement, says, quote unquote, this is yet again another Democratic witch hunt by the Democratic parties and their Democratic prosecutors and their Democratic district attorneys. Democratic hoax. Well, these people have now dived into records that you presented before you were president. Not going to help you. So Also, we have to look at this. Not only are they going after Trump, but as you notice, they went after Giuliani and found out more than they thought they did. Case in point, he had electronic devices that were directly connected and linked to Russian operatives, which, as soon as the information was recorded and repeated, it dissipated. Conspiracy theory? I don't think so. Also, they've went after now Steve Bannon, the architect of the Trump political machine, or basically, as a lot of people call it, the new Mein Kampf, expressing the man who actually started the big lie with a great deal of supremacists as his co-partner and rally behind. They've now come after him. I guess buying that big yacht would have been a huge indication that you were doing something wrong, Steve. Terrible situation. So now the conversation has been recently, because Trump has this ability to shift the blame and people take the fall for it, which was said by his other attorney who just got released from prison. The question is now, first, is he going to get indicted? Well, let's look at it. An indictment is basically a secret hearing in which they present the evidence that is in secret and they're sworn not to reveal. And they basically get what's called a true bill, or that this evidence is beyond the preponderance, not beyond a reasonable doubt, which would be the standard in court, but beyond a preponderance of the evidence, which means something could be wrong. Now, after a true bill, oh, by the way, in case anybody has ever experienced some of the state's justice in terms of an indictment, well, you're not there to actually answer the charges or to challenge the evidence that they have, which means that most states can indict a ham sandwich. Yes, that's true. However, Trump thinks that he's going to skate through, or number two, if it does go to trial and they do have someone up there and witnesses up there, Trump's team will shift the blame on somebody else. Let's see. It was my accountant who suggested that I do that. Oh, this was done by a former attorney, a tax attorney, who said that this was legal. Or this was done in the hopes of doing this for deductions. Case in point, one of the biggest things is that Trump Organization, which his daughter, Melania Trump, worked for, paid her $80,000 to consult Trump Organization. You think that's legal? I don't know. However, what we're finding out more and more and more, and us building back norms and us breaking the wall of racial inequalities and inequalities everywhere in our country. What we're finding out more and more is that those who have that wealth and power, who have been escaping justice, are being actively pursued. So, Donald Trump, let's see if we can get an orange jumpsuit to match your orange face. I'm Vincent Squire. We'll be right back after this break.
To small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen. and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you going to find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. Maybe able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
So unfortunately, we do have a dress code. If you have some non-athletic shorts.
But that white kid out there can't be here with his tennis shoes on and his athletic shirt.
So we allow tennis shoes, but not athletic shorts and t-shirts.
He has on you telling me that's not an athletic shirt?
Sorry, I would love for you to be able to come back and eat here.
I don't want you to sympathize with me. I just want you to tell me why it's different for my son. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just asking you why it's different for my son.
The t-shirt that the little kid was wearing, we don't consider that to be athletic t-shirt.
Why?
Honestly, I did not get a good look, but it looked like a regular t-shirt.
I have a video. Do you want to see it?
All right, you just saw the clip of something that is going viral. Here is a new, well, it's not new. I guess we're going to call this DWB, Dining While Black. You just saw the clip of a mother who is taking her family to a very nice restaurant. She's approached by the manager and rejected because of discrimination. They have a dress code, and her son does not meet the dress code. That excuse has been happening to Black Americans since the Reconstruction. In fact, I had an interview with former Mayor Wilson Goode, and here he was, his first term being mayor, and he went someplace where he wasn't in a suit, and I think he said he was wearing some slacks and a shirt, no jacket, and some sneakers. And Mayor of Philadelphia, he was denied access, rejected because of his dress code. So this woman therefore confronts the manager, who gives her a litany of excuses that's bullcrap. So she looks at his clothes, she takes a picture of his son, and then you see this white kid wearing the not exact same thing, because this kid had on a Nike shirt and the other kid just had on a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and some sneakers, which is primarily on a hot day what you put your children in. Yet for this family style restaurant, this young Black man is supposed to be dressed, I guess, in a suit and tie. Really? This is nothing new for African Americans. Let's look at a case that I love, a Denny's restaurant in Maryland rejected the service of Black Secret Service agents dining while Black. They didn't want to serve them because they, one, didn't know they were Secret Service agents, and two, they believe that Black people who come to Denny's at night tend not to pay for service. Likely excuse. That manager issued out an apology to them as well. Oh, and let's see. I was in Philadelphia at a restaurant that's no longer there, but it was a very popular spot. And in comes Allen Iverson with his entourage. And anybody in Philadelphia knows that, you see a Bentley convertible and 6 people jump out of it. It's Allen Iverson. So they get out, they go into the restaurant. I think it was a TGIF at that particular time. They go into that restaurant, and here is Allen Iverson at the height of his career. He is basically the 8th most recognized face in America, and he is denied access. Dress code. Why? At that particular time, Iverson wore braids. That wasn't a black man was not allowed to wear braids in his hair. And TGI Fridays in Philadelphia. Oh, and the latest. In Atlanta, Dominique Wilkins, long-term star of the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, this man used to be called the human highlight reel. Then during a point in the 80s, there was not a day that you didn't see on ESPN some clip of Dominique Wilkins. Yet, this man goes into an Atlanta restaurant, and he is therefore denied access. Why? Dress code. One thing I love about this young lady and what she did was how she handled those microaggressions. We have to put a stop to this. We all have to put a stop to this. One of the biggest tools that we have in fighting these microaggressions is this. Let's start recording these people, recording their bullcrap answers, and then posting it all over social media, because we are never going to get change, okay, until we make change. As my grandmother used to say, when my father used to pick with her and he talked to her about Einstein's theory of insanity, saying that, insanity is the same person doing the same thing, expecting a different result. My grandmother said, well, I don't know about Einstein, but I'm going to tell you this. You keep doing what you do, you're always going to get what you got. We keep doing what we do, we're always going to get what we got. So let's do something different. As we talked about building back better, building a new norm, let's put an end to all of this racial microaggressions by fighting them with the phone. And then, by the way, this is how it grows. We fight them with the phone, and we have physical evidence of being discriminated against. And then we get, lots of black attorneys like Ben Crump that, enjoys going around suing people for violating our constitutional rights. We'll be right back. 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Into small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you going to find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live, What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. Maybe able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
Yesterday, after a great deal of outrage of the comment made by the infamous Marjorie Taylor Greene, let's dive into her comment. She was ranting about Nancy Pelosi putting a mask mandate for everyone to be on the floor to wear their masks. Although, yes, all of them are vaccinated. And yes, the CDC did put out the order stating that, if you are fully vaccinated, you don't need to wear your mask outdoors as well as indoors if everybody else is vaccinated. But Nancy Pelosi did err on this side of caution and said, you're going to wear your mask. Marjorie Taylor Greene went on her social media rant when stating that putting on the mask, as Nancy Pelosi suggested, was the equivalent of when the Jews had to wear a gold star on their garments. See, here is one of the most incredible things is that somewhere in our country, there are a group of people who deem fit to put into a position of power to make change. Someone with the mental acuity of a jackass. Okay, somewhere along the line, she actually, didn't understand the history lessons of elementary school, high school, life, and she equated wearing a mask to the constant wearing a star, which led to concentration camps, being harassed, violence in the streets. Women were assaulted, raped. People were shot and brutalized. And that was just before a lot of them went to concentration camps. He equates wearing a mask to that. Where wearing a mask is the most significant way of safety to protect people from catching the COVID virus or spreading the COVID virus. So public safety versus racial ridicule and death. And she thinks that is equal. Here is the problem that we have. AOC made a comment which was considered anti-Semitic because she said that Israel's allies are pretty much into it being their allies for money. That brought up an outrage, an uproar, and everybody was all over AOC's behind. You've got to apologize. You have to do this. That's anti-Semitic. And the big lie. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is another person pushing the big lie. Because of that, all of the I don't know why they call them right wing, because historically the Republicans were called the right wing because they were the Bible toting, scripture quoting politicians who always based their decision on what was fundamentally right. But now they went from the right wing to the ultra white wing, which basically means the white supremacist groups of all types are now, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is the big recipient of their donations. He is the largest micro donation of $50 and under in the Senate, which she takes that money and basically buys the inaction of other senators by giving them some of her donation money to increase their campaign and therefore buying their silence. You know, I am so sick of politics to the point where I am about to vomit. Our politicians are not doing what's fundamentally right for the country, for the states in what they represent, for the people who earnestly go out and vote for them. They're just basically doing what's right for themselves, the dollars. No wonder why all of this great stuff has been going on. And the politicians or the Republicans are now still pushing the big lie to the point where they're saying, well, that wasn't an insurrection. I mean, really, if you look at how they were just so orderly walking through the Capitol, you think that it was just a group of tourists. Really? Or why they're having such a hard time getting the commission to investigate the insurrection. Well, let's look at it. Who would serve the greatest amount of harm of investigating this insurrection? Trump? Oh, that's right. You guys are afraid of Trump. Why are you afraid of Trump? Well, let's think about it. One, because all of the quote unquote cult of 45, better known as Trump followers, will stop sending you money. Or even worse, once again, these group of yahoos are getting their pickup truck and come back down to the Capitol and build a gallows and start calling out your names to be hugged. Yet, you guys are afraid of them. You're afraid to speak out the truth to them. And you punish a woman who has more kahunas than all of you men to speak out the truth about Trump. Is something wrong with our politics today? We should actually start now organizing, rallying, finding new candidates to vote out these cowards. One thing I don't need in my politics is a leader without a backbone, a leader without intestinal fortitude, a leader who is afraid to speak truth to power, yet toe the line of the big lie. Let's take a break. We'll see you in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Into small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you gonna find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. may be able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
Welcome back. Here we go. Big lie in Arizona. CNN reported talking to the woman on the quote unquote conspiracy of the big lie. And one of the big things that she has done was raise millions of dollars. You know, here is how we can actually pay off some of our debts in our states. We got all these white supremacists, big lie theorists, these yahoos, make America great again. And they've been spending a whole lot of money in supporting all of these things. Why don't we just get a big lie tax and start taxing some of their dollars? And then we can actually, basically, we can balance our budget off of that. But yet again, I digress. Therapist, they talk to her, and she says that they're going to finance the first $100,000 and all of this with the quote unquote cyber ninjas, who are, by the way, not a state audit group. They are not even a state audit subgroup in which they would hire to do the official audits of the machines, the ballots, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now they are going through fine-tooth ultraviolet lights with every ballot. We're talking over 2 million ballots. Why? Not for traces of COVID, but traces of bamboo, because they believe that those ballots were shipped in from Asia, and the old ballots were basically shredded and fed to a chicken farm, in which the chicken farm was set on fire. Really? So they are now searching those for traces of bamboo coming from Asia to find out that all of these ballots were fraudulent. Well, yet again, then the state of Arizona turned over the voting machines to the cyber ninjas to check to make sure that the machines in which the levers were pulled for the exact candidate to elect that person, and did an accurate, true account of who the individual was voting for. Which they did, and they found out that there are no irregularities, or any irregularities which would basically change the course of the election. Better yet, they found that, it was a little bit under 2% in terms of an irregularity. Oh, this is how they found out that that was a 2% irregularity. And the mail-in ballots, the way that they had folded, some of them folded a little too much, which made it look like it was a vote for. But like I said, out of 2 million, we're only talking less than 2%, which was corrected. By the way, the correction of it did not go in Trump's favor. It went in favor of Biden. So the big lie is therefore now eliminated. Oh, and most important, I hope she raises enough money, because the state of Arizona, for those machines in which were turned over to the cyber ninjas, the Arizona Board of Elections said, You can't use those anymore. They have to be tossed out. So for the next election, the state of Arizona has to buy new machines. Way to go, Arizona. Way to support that theory. Yet, it's all about exhausting the state, because now the big lie has every state chasing their tail to find out what's true. Spending all that money, all that time to tell you what you already know. Trump law. We'll be back.
To small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you gonna find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. Maybe able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
And welcome back. Recently, we've been doing our show every day from 10 to 2. And one of the biggest comments I've been getting in my feed is, what happened to Eric Dawson? What did you do to Eric Dawson? And I mean, it is now engaged itself into a huge conspiracy theory. There are people who are saying that I'm really cheap with the contract. There are people who have been saying that, Eric has launched his own show. Well, let's get into the actual truth, because, one thing that I will not do is foster on my show, The Big Lie.
Right.
From North Jersey, my friend, co-host, and also star of the Eric Dawson Show, Mr. ADOS, Eric Dawson. How you been?
Hey, man. I've been well, busy, but well. And I want to apologize because I know that it could look weird to people, me moving around. But once we get into the context of why I'm moving around, you'll understand, more of what we're talking about during the show. I'm here in the bakery, as you guys can see. I'm going to give you a quick view. Right. And I am running my business.
Oh, your business.
So it had nothing to do with anything other than that.
I understand business is going pretty well for you.
Listen, man. Yeah. And we have to do a show on entrepreneurs, business development, all that other kind of stuff. But business is going well. But like most businesses, Vincent, I'm facing the hurdle of finding people to work.
Oh, but wait, we've got the great Deidre Viney. She's like the expert in finding people.
Well, no, she's the expert of having jobs available. She's having the same problem finding people as well. When we've had her on, right? What did she say? I've got jobs, no people. I got jobs, no people.
Right. Okay. So what's the big issue in finding people? I mean, because believe me, I'm a serial entrepreneur as well. So what issues are you running into?
Just that people are not motivated to work. There's truth to what folks have said about these stimulus packages, right? That you have Americans who are making more money now being on unemployment. Well, let me not say making. They're getting more money now, not earning, but getting more money now than they've ever had in their lives, some of them. And so there's no impetus for them to go to work. And like Deirdre has said several times in the past, it's going to come to an end. It's going to come to an end. But as of right now, they're not motivated to work.
So once it ends, then you've got everybody knocking on your door. Until then, you're going to be working really hard.
Yeah. I mean, and we're paying $15 an hour.
Eric?
Yep.
I remember one of the first times being on your show. We had this conversation about raising the minimum wage. That was what, 3 years ago?
Yep.
3 years ago, we talked about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We talked about the inflation that it would go to. They did a moratorium. In fact, the fast food restaurants had a day off because they were tired of being the commodities of everyone's wealth and getting the short end of it.
Absolutely.
So that's come back to bite America in the butt.
Yep. I mean, look, there's so much, Vincent. But the biggest thing is, man, people are just not motivated to work. People just believe that they should just get money. And there's some truth to that, right? I think, and we talked about this during the 2016 race. I think that Andrew Yang, when he talked about a universal basic income, people just need to have some basic level of security. And then beyond that, right? So some base that they'll never fall below. And then beyond that, they can earn money to do some additional things. But right now, people, they're not insecure financially. They're just, I think, taking a reprieve. If you can imagine just being in the grinder 24/7. Now some of these people get to just sit on their porch, hang out in their backyard, just unwind and not think about anything. Now, yes, they don't have a long-term plan for that, but I can certainly understand to some extent them saying, I just been working for the last 15 years. I get to just sit back for a minute and feel some sense of normalcy, and just collect some money and just kind of, not feel like my head's going to explode. There's something to be said for that.
Well, I mean, let's see. I'm getting paid not to get into the rat race where in all reality, the rats are winning.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Wow.
So I'm not mad at that. Right. I understand it. But it does present some challenges for me as a business owner. Right. And so we're trying to overcome those challenges.
As well as other businesses. You're looking at now businesses are giving incentive, sign-on bonuses, paying college tuition, childcare.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing all of that. And one of the things that, this is, during this time, it's the art of the pivot. The art of the pivot, man. You have to be able to pivot. And that's what we're doing, right? So even in how we find people to work for us, all right, we have to pivot. And so I'm out at the places where people are working. So what I found is this: you got to go where people are currently working, not where people are not working. Right. So you can't go to Indeed and Craigslist because those people are having, just like Deidre Viney, they're having problems, getting people to respond. Right. But if you go to the Walmarts, the Targets, the CVSs of the world, where you have people who are working and they're making minimum wage or just below minimum wage, right? Those people want to work. And now you offer them the opportunity to make more money. Right. So what I've done is develop these little flyers, and I go into those stores. And when I see, folks, I say, hey, listen, how's it going? I mean, that literally is my icebreaker. How's it going? And that will elicit a number of responses, including, hey, man, I'm tired of working. Hey, listen, everybody's tired of working, but would you like to earn a little bit more money? Oh, that's absolutely right. And so now I tell them, hey, look, I know you're making this amount of money, but this can't pay your bills, right? This helps with your bills, but now I have this other opportunity for you. And we've been able to pick people up that way.
So, Grandma Emma's, how many units are you pushing now?
We're at about 2,200 a week.
Wow.
Yeah, we're going to max out in a couple of weeks, and we're going to be doing about 4,000 to 4,300 units a week.
Wow, you definitely need some workers. So I really hate to do this to you because you're so short of workers, but I've got some people who I gave some Grandma Emma's out for Christmas.
Right.
They've been dying to find out where they can get more. Can you put that out there?
Oh, sure. Well, you can go to the website, grandmaemmas.com. You can order there. That's probably the best place to go. You could also inbox us or hit us up on Instagram, Grandma Emma's, or Facebook, Grandma Emma's, and you could place an order there, and we can make sure that it gets processed and shipped out.
But if you got an immediate fix, he's doing some farmer markets and ShopRite.
Yeah, man. And I don't know if I showed you. So we've got new labels, man.
Well, can you show everybody again of the new Grandma Emma's?
Yeah, so here are new, wait a minute, where are they? Here are new labels. So we came a long way, what they say, the Virginia Slim, come a long way, baby. Right? So that's a new label.
Wow.
Right? So we went from, wait a minute. Now, I'm going to tell you something. We went from this, which is essentially a sticker, right, to a full-blown label, right? Now, folks will tell you that you need to spend a lot of time in creative meetings and things like that in order to sell product. We sold over 60,000 units with that sticker.
Okay.
Right. You understand?
Yeah.
So
you have the laugh, last laugh.
Now, what I will say is since we've introduced the new label, at least ShopRite has said that we've had a 30% increase in sales. Okay. So, wow. So it definitely helps, right? But we were able to make progress with the old one.
Way to go. Well, listen, I know you're busy. I appreciate you coming up here and dispelling the myth.
Oh, anytime, man.
Okay.
Anytime. Listen, gotta have you in the bakery, right? We'll do a live from the bakery, and you can come in and you can meet Ito. You see him in the background, right? And we're two Black men getting it done.
All right. Well, on behalf of all Black businesses, I'm glad you're minding your own Black business. Okay.
I'm minding my own Black business. That's absolutely correct.
Okay. All right. We're gonna come back. We're gonna take a break, and I'll see you all in 2 minutes, 2 seconds. Eric Dawson, say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you going to find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. Maybe able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
Build Back Better was the campaign mantra of now President Joe Biden. And myself included, like a lot of Americans, we were looking for that Build Back Better. This is where we are now in Build Back Better. Now that we have over 50% of American adults vaccinated, we've also found that the vaccination in 3,700 independent studies of adolescents from the age of 17 to 12, the vaccine has the same effective rate as that of the adults. Not a big difference. And Build Back Better, we have gotten stimulus checks to help people with their financial insecurities. We have moratoriums on rent to keep people from being evicted, and mortgages from keeping people from being foreclosed upon. With all of that saving America, what does it lead to? Oh, by the way, the top 6 corporations had experienced a great deal of difficulty under the Donald Trump economic stimulus package, which basically had us pay a little bit over $1.1 trillion to large corporations who are already billionaires. So in 3 months of the pandemic, the money that they had lost or did not receive because of the shutdown, they made that back. Yet in terms of America and small businesses, as we saw with Eric, they're still struggling. One of the biggest reasons that they're struggling, Build Back Better, has also built back something that Americans are very much used to in fighting: inflation. Everything now is going up because there are a lot of people looking to recoup or actually take and capitalize on the simple fact that people are getting $300 additional a week in their unemployment, and people are getting stimulus checks, and people are basically have some disposable income and time or boredom to spend. So what's been going up? Inflation. Housing market right now is at an all-time stalemate, where it is difficult to find houses. So what does that do? Well, that brings about inflation because the housing market therefore gets a little goofy and say, because owners of houses get a lot goofy and saying the house that I bought for $300,000, since there is shortage, I can get $600,000 for my piece of trash house. Woo! And we realtors who are saying, not 600, 675.5. Which now the banks aren't falling for that level of stupidity. We went through that in the 80s. So the banks are not actually doing that. Why? Because the banks, for those who are financing their homes, are giving the appraisal values of the pre-pandemic ratio. So if you are buying a house and that has been appraised for $300,000 and you have a contract for $600,000, the bank is going to give you $300,000, which means that other $300,000 is coming out of your pockets. So if you got that kind of money, and since I don't, because I've got a kid that's in pre-med, make it happen. Not only that, but because there's a shortage in that, what I found out is that there's a shortage in lumber. And as Eric talked about, there's a shortage in labor. So the construction workers who were making a great deal of money for construction is now making more money just to come back to work and do construction. Build back better. Now we're looking at sticker shock. Not only when we go to the gas pump, because the majority on a national average is $3.04 a gallon, we're looking at sticker shock when we go to the supermarket, where the average family would spend $150 a week. What we're finding that they spent, because when we go shopping, we just get the same stuff that we got the last time we went shopping because it ran out. So they're still getting the same stuff, at which they got at $150 on an average, has now cost them $187. This is the Build Back Better part that I'm not liking. Once again, who bears the brunt of this? Well, most of the time, it's the essential workers, better known as the commodity of the wealth, who are making minimum wage. It is the working poor, where I've seen some mothers who have 2 jobs a day, working at this convenience store in the morning, this convenience store in the afternoon, just to make what they would make if the minimum wage was at $15 an hour. Who bears the brunt of it? Well, the children. And thank God Joe Biden and his American Rescue Act did some incredible things to decrease the poverty level of children. If not, children would be in some real bad situations. Who bears the brunt of it? It's the Americans. Not to mention, we've got trillions of dollars in tax money that has to backfill the trillions of dollars that we have given to corporations and that we've given to other Americans in terms of their stimulus checks. Inflation has to stop because we got a lot of debt to pay off. And this rampant greed from these corporations, please, people, we're still just a paycheck away with this financial insecurity. Stop being greedy and start using a little humanity and actually saying that, you know what, we can make it and we can build back better, but it has to be together. We cannot price gouge our fellow Americans just for the simple sake that we want to, recoup what we've lost. That money's gone. It ain't, just like my hairline, it ain't coming back. Let's start using really good fiscal sense instead of using fiscal greed, because of the ripple effect or the domino effect of inflation. Let's look at the domino inflation in the 90s, where the price of gas went up because people were investing to be greedy, and oil speculators driving the cost of oil, which drove up the cost of gasoline, which had the airliners increase their ticket price, and you had to pay for luggage, which means that, since they were getting more money, it cost these other people more money, so they had to raise their prices. The other group had to raise their prices, and over and over and over again, which drove us into another point of inflation. We're looking at that right now. Please, people, stop the greed insanity. When are we going to learn? We'll find out when we come back. I'm Vincent Squire.
Into small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you going to find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. Maybe able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
In our new normal, I want to dive into something that's been hitting my Facebook page for a while. It shows a picture of a prisoner who was sentenced to the electric chair. And as the narrative goes, he said after being sentenced, he needed a pen and paper. He sat there and wrote a letter. He wrote a letter to his mother, who he alerted her that he was sentenced to the electric chair. And he said, "You should be right here with me because you were my co-conspirator." And the letter dives on and he talks about how she, at the age of 2, let him get away with stealing. At the age of 5, let him get away with stealing. At the age of 12, let him get away with stealing, to the point where he had progressed to not only stealing, but armed robbery, bank robberies, and just about every crime, and leading up to murder. Well, it was a big lie. Case in point, the person in the picture was not sentenced to death. There's not even a state that sentenced this person to death. Actually, that's the picture of one of the quote unquote most sexiest mugshot men. And in that picture, he was basically getting arraigned. And by the way, after that photo was taken, he now married a very wealthy woman. So I guess for some people, crime does pay. But let's get back to the letter. The letter was a big lie, but yet in the Facebook that was going back and forth and responses that were going back and forth about it, I have to say that there was a great deal of truth to that letter, even though it was a lie. The truth of the matter is that parents have the most significant part in changing the trajectory of their children. Children at a young age don't need you to be their best friend all of the time. They do need some guidance. They do need some directions. They do need to be disciplined. I'm not saying that, you pull out a belt and whoop your child silly, but I am saying that, every now and then, when you talk to your children about their homework, that they do it with the video game off and that you check it. And every now and then, since that we're on, we still have virtual school for a lot of people, and a lot of parents have a level of communicating with their teachers, that you check with the teachers in terms of the progress of their children, and not wait for the report card where you give the shock face. Okay. Or the simple fact of the matter is that, for those who have virtual school, there is no way in hell that your child would have a 70% absentee record when you are on virtual school. Parents, I know it's difficult. I had Dr. Darrell Johnson, a principal, talk about how difficult it is for parents, especially parents of color, during this COVID and their children. But some things you should not get a pass on. One, making sure that your child is there on time and making sure that your child is learning. Or as my grandmother used to say in terms of education, son, are you picking up what the teacher's putting down? Yes, we have that responsibility of being parents. Being a parent is not a punishment. Being a parent is a gift from God. It is actual a blessing. And you have an incredible charge to direct, to change, to motivate, to mold, and to develop a successful and competent and very great member of our society. You have the opportunity to change the trajectory of a child that will go to jail and a child that will be an attorney and argue before the Supreme Court. You have the ability to change that child into a child that's looking into having health issues, to a child who can cure cancer, the common cold, or as we've seen our heroes of this pandemic, make a vaccine. You have that ability to change the direction of your child, to bring them into their greatness. All you have to do is stand up and be a parent. Will your child be your friend? Maybe, maybe not. But your child will be productive. And one thing that your child will do is respect you for their efforts. I look back on my childhood, and yeah, my father was a disciplinarian. But as I look back on it, I don't think of the discipline. I think of all the good times that we had. But I do look back on the discipline and say how it molded me and kept me from doing those things in which I shouldn't have been doing in the first place. We have that right as parents. Let's exercise that right. We'll be back with closing remarks. 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Into small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you gonna find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. May be able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
In our society, re-entering into society due to the pandemic and building back better and building our new norms, we're going to have to, as our guest said, Tia Sanders, we're going to have an honest look at ourselves. We're going to have to straighten up some things. We're going to have to do things like straighten up and also deal with the microaggressions of racism. We're going to have to look at ourselves in terms of where we're lacking in our insecurities. We're going to have to look at ourselves in terms of how we deal with our children, how we deal with our brothers and sisters, how we deal with our neighbors. Let's look at it. One thing that's on the rise, and this, as we come out of the pandemic, is violence, gun violence, mass shootings, to the point where they're doing very little reporting of it. One thing on the rise is domestic violence and substance abuse. We're going to actually have to take a hard and honest look at ourselves and look at our humanity. The most incredible thing is going over the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd, our humanity. Looking at what's going on with the food banks and food lines. Let's look at our children and how they are on virtual learning, yet failing, and how we are not looking at what we're doing with our children because they're home. We're blaming the teachers. Our humanity. Building a new norm. We have to take an honest look at our country.